Hi, folks. We made it to Module 6, which is about meeting design and gathering people well. So last week, we learned how to pick our battles, to figure out what conversations we need to have with whom, and if we're going to persuade the important decision makers and persuade the people who influence the decision makers and persuade the people who are going to implement the plans that are the decisions that are made by decision makers, right? So that's the power mapping. But once you have made that map, once you have figured out who you need to win over and how, well, then you have to go about actually scheduling and planning the meetings that you're going to have with them. So today we're going to talk about how to design those meetings. And the primary person whose work we'll engage is Priya Parker. She's author of The Art of Gathering. And she makes this claim that I find that I don't think is grounded in empirical science, but I think is still a very helpful claim to us, which is that 90% of what happens in a gathering, for our purposes, you can just insert the word meeting, 90% of what happens is determined before anybody walks in the room. It's determined, the outcome of the conversation is determined by questions like, who is in the conversation? Where are you meeting? Are you meeting in a formal boardroom, or are you meeting in a park or in a coffee shop? Because those meeting choices will determine how people behave when they show up. What kind of invitation did they get to the meeting? Was it, did you have a warm conversation with them and you let them know what the meeting was about, and then, or did you send them an email out of the clear blue sky from somebody that they've never met before? Did they get an agenda ahead of time? Did they get any documents to review ahead of time? Was there a pre-meeting before the meeting? All of these conditions, was the meeting scheduled during a really busy time for them, or a time that was particularly convenient? All of those choices will have huge impacts on the outcome of the conversations that you have. And also, you can have a lot of fun with meeting design. Like, this is one of those things that seems really boring at the outset, but again, it's kind of a superpower if you can do it well. So what's interesting about Priya Parker and The Art of Gathering is that while she is trained in conflict management and has facilitated peace talks and corporate mergers and family feuds, that she is just as interested in how people gather for birthday parties and Thanksgiving and wedding showers. And she thinks that the same rules mostly apply to good gatherings that are contentious and good gatherings that are not at all contentious, but are just an opportunity for people to connect. She thinks that all kinds of effective meetings enable people to build connections across difference. They create belonging without reducing diversity. And that's really useful to leaders who are trying to promote any kind of change in an organization, or trying to support people and working through conflict well. Because a lot of the meetings that you will have identified in your power mapping, they're not necessarily contentious conversations. They might just be information sharing or information gathering. Sometimes they'll be difficult conversations, but in all of those settings, what's important is that you be building relationships and building trust. And that means giving people opportunities to connect in ways that are authentic and as safe as possible and purposeful, whether that particular conversation is a contentious one or not. So Priya Parker's work is really useful to those of us who are trying to make change by building healthy and stronger relationships. All right, I think that's all you need to know for right now, and I hope you enjoy the module.